Welcome to Luthier's Tips, Tools and Training from Crimson Guitars. I'm Ben Crowe in my home studio again, and I'm playing. I'm enjoying the possibilities afforded to me by casting and cold cast metalwork and inlay powders and things like that. And this is something I've wanted to get into for a long time because I've seen the sheer amount of possibilities available. It's not going to be everything that I do in guitar building, but for now, well, I'm deep diving. Accents, 5%, the last 5% of a build, as you've heard me say ad infinitum, is the most important, and it's all about the tiny little details. And on this pair of Cowrie guitars that I'm working on right now, that is, well, that's what I'm doing. Playing with the tiny details. I've never really liked the truss rod access on Telecasters. It's always annoyed me. Let me just put it that way. It's a tiny hole. You're sticking a hardened steel tool into it. Oftentimes it gets damaged. Gluing in and drilling out a bit of walnut or something like that is problematic. Finish along the inside of that is never really done very well. It's a utilitarian solution to a problem, and from a manufacturing design point of view, fantastic. It just doesn't look right to me. So we've done something a little bit different on this.
Burn it.
We have routed out just a solid channel, and leaving this raw, especially once the fretboard is in, etc., it's not a good look. You've got no support underneath the nut. It's part way there, and I'm sure that some of you who have seen this neck in previous videos have noticed this and said, Ben doesn't normally do that. What I've done is I've taken a small mould over the truss rod. This is a quick set silicone rubber putty. It's hard in 3 or 4 minutes. So I took a mould from that, cut away a few little sections underneath the truss rod where it wrapped around the truss rod, and then I made a mould from my mould. Obviously I needed to put some mould release on there, some wax, because silicone likes sticking to silicone. I used this mould to cast a quick and dirty section of cold cast aluminium. For years I've said I hate resin, and I really do. Resin in the craft world, resin rivers where a resin river doesn't need to be there, a resin guitar when there has been no allowance made for, I don't know, weight, for that matter, looks. A lot of these things are literally just solid, squared off chunks of very heavy, unattractive, in many cases, bits of plastic. Where resins do come into their own, though, are when you're using it with, for example, composites. Everybody loves, that's a sweeping statement, lots of people love carbon fiber guitars. That involves resin. There are guitar finishes that are resin-based finishes. It's a polyurethane resin mixed 1-to-1 with aluminium powder, and you can actually put even more powder in to get a far more metallic effect. With the aluminium in particular, when you file through, it looks like you've just used metal, and I like that. You'll see that we've got an inlaid fretboard on this guitar, and since we CNC'd the fretboard, in fact I'm not entirely sure if it was CNC'd, basically the fretboard has shrunk a little bit. Now I didn't want a perfect fit in any case. I wanted a slight gap, and before the end of today, this fretboard is going to be glued in, and I'm going to have a cold cast aluminium accent line, essentially aluminium binding. Now this is cured and been left overnight, so it's now relatively hard and ready. You can chisel this. Say hello to my tiny chisel. File it, you can sand it. Basically anything that you would normally do with wood, etc., is possible with this. The last thing you want is the truss rod binding inside this, which is obviously why you don't pour resin into the truss rod cavity. I'm not entirely sure what the mechanism is, but this comes out slightly larger than the cavity in some cases. So I need to fit it now. Let's get the excess off first of all. Yeah, these things are incredible. This resin is mostly cured within 20 minutes. You can demold it after 20 minutes, and you can start filing on it fairly soon after that. And it is easier to file when it's part cured, but it does just act like wood, really. Now I'm flattening the top section down just a little bit. If I was doing this in a production setting, I'd have a two-part mold that ensured that the top was exactly where I needed it, and I suppose that would be injection molding. But this is a one-off, quick and dirty, and a little bit of hand fettling. That's what I live for, actually. So yeah, I'm not complaining. Okay, so I go down to a point where I'm almost through. Well, there we go. To give myself a little bit of room there, and then I'm just going to gently take down the sides. And almost immediately I've got a fit that is nearly where I need it. And I've just revealed the tip of the truss rod axis. Nearly there, a little bit of a fit there. Now I'm planning on making some pickup surrounds in this material for these guitars as well. Control plates, pickguards, literally so many options. I'm just tidying up the end. Not essential, but hey, what is essential? Frets, maybe. Now you can see potentially some very tiny gaps around the leading edge there. Now something else I do need to just double check is that the bottom of that isn't getting in the way of my truss rod access, because hey, that would kind of defeat the point. And that's all good. I'm going to slightly change the angle in any case, and then we'll get this glued in. Now I only need a very tiny amount, 2-part. So that's 3 grams of resin, and we want about 3 grams of the aluminium powder as well. And basically I'm mixing up a glue that is the same material as the part. It will fill any gaps and make the whole thing nice and homogeneous. Okay, so I don't want any of this really to go on the truss rod. So I'm staying away from that. Just a small amount. And it really starts going off very quickly. And it's already starting to set. It's about 10 minutes later. I had a phone call while that epoxy was setting. There's a little bit of a lump there, but it comes away. And you can see here just how flexible the material this is. My original plan was to, once all of this has been glued in, was to take a cast of this area and then make a truss rod cover that literally fits in and potentially even has a magnet that clips onto the end of the truss rod there. But I'm going to hold that in reserve. I quite like that. Now, what I think I'm going to do is, once the fretboard is glued in, I'm going to build up another layer of the cold cast resin, covering the end of the fretboard and turning that into an interesting shape. We'll see. Yeah, this whole thing needs to be sanded. I'm going to let that cure for a little bit longer, and a bit of sandpaper, a bit of scraping in there, and you end up with a very interesting thing. Yeah, if I can get in there. Oh, this is fun. Okay, these little scraper tools with handles on, they're yeah, one of my favorites. So obviously it does need something done there, but we'll get to that once the neck is glued in. Now for that, I've got locating pins, which I'm going to reinstall. I am going to glue the neck in with wood glue along the underside in the neck pocket there. Then, very quickly and carefully, I'm going to apply a layer of the cold cast resin along the outside edge of the fretboard, and as that gets pressed in, I'm going to have homemade binding, or purfling, I suppose. I think it's Ernie Ball, because they're clever, who they route a binding channel into a rectangular blank of wood, pour resin into it, and then once that's cured, they route it out and they've got binding that's perfect. I've always thought that was a very, very clever way of doing things. And here we are. One last little bit of prep. I do not want to flood my fret slots with epoxy. So I'm taking some plasticine and filling the fret ends with plasticine. I'll scrape the excess off so I do have a clean surface. And I'm going to stop pressing on the delicate edge of this fret binding, integral binding. What would you call it? Let me know in the comments. Now the plasticine will scrape out very, very easily with a dental tool in a minute. Far, far easier than cured epoxy would. It is the lot of a guitar builder to make enough mistakes that they eventually start seeing into the future. And they still find new mistakes to make. Go figure. I'm running my finger along the bottom edge as a location aiding device. The side of the neck is sanded down one last time just to remove any vestigial traces of plasticine, and then we go. I am not going to be able to move the camera. I'm not going to be able to do anything clever here. Once this gets going, it gets going. Damn it. I knew I forgot something. It's typical, isn't it? Just at the loose points of the truss rod, when it's in its interstitial spot, if it's not under tension, those points could create some rattle, and you don't want that. Now this glue isn't going down into the thread. It is not going to gum up the truss rod in any way. Okay, this is very, very liquid right now. Aha. There we go. This stuff has got a pot life of about 2 minutes. Now I can always go back afterwards and add more into these gaps, but I'd rather not, if I can avoid it. That's just starting to turn to goop, so it's still vaguely liquid, so we got it in just in time. It's been about an hour and a half now. Obviously the resin has absolutely cured because that stuff goes off rapidly. Hopefully we're all good. Lots of mess, lots of fuss. If you run the chisel on the good surface, on the flat surface, and carefully present the blade up to what you want to cut, it gets it pretty level without any danger to the substrate. And once you've done that, it's a case of a scraper, and again at an angle, or potentially running with a finger off the edge. Now, as I get to the super glue finish, it starts to peel away. So I'm not going to do very much, if any, damage to the super glue. And in this case, the rosewood is slightly higher than the fretboard. I should have put more plasticine in these fret slots. These fret slots have also been impregnated with super glue and plasticine and all sorts of stuff. They will need a good clean out before the frets go in. Here we go. So with some mess and fuss and fiddling about, we've gone from that to something akin to a guitar. I'm really happy. We're almost at the end of this episode. Check it out. I'm very, very happy with how this has turned out. Obviously there's some tidying, some cleaning. There was a very annoying dent that ended up coming from the cork clamps. Somebody had left some glue somewhere inside the clamping core. Here is what we've ended up with for the truss rod access. I've built up, it's a little dusty, I've built up on the Telecaster. I'm not 100% happy with that as it currently stands. Hell, I might actually just build it flat. I don't really like the fingernail cut out there. I've rounded over the edges of the headstocks, and I'm about to mix up some more resin. I've been watching a lot, and I mean a lot, of videos on porcelain and pottery and ceramics and the finishing techniques thereof. I want to see what the cold cast aluminium does as a finish on the headstocks. Fight me in the comments. Now this is going to be sanded down and potentially given a texture. I'm wondering how self-leveling it is as well. Now this may end up coming off. I may hate it, the client may hate it. We'll see. I have a good feeling. And what I'd like to do is route the logo, the signature, etc., through the aluminium powder or aluminium resin. I'm really amazed at how perfectly I just guessed the amount of resin required for this. I am not one for figuring out volume, etc. First of all, yes, currently looks a little bit poopy, I understand. And no, three things. Obviously, some of this resin has got into where the truss rod is, which was to be expected. But as it's curing, I'm manipulating the truss rod, and it's not binding. We've got no problem there. Thirdly, I mentioned ceramics earlier. Having a drip of resin going over the side, there you go, you can see the sort of pleasing thing, in the same way that you would have a glaze or an overglaze on a nice pot. That is something I want to play with, and I just need to clear the edge of this headstock off. Fairly soon this is going to be solid. Within 24 hours this is going to be as hard as any finish you could dream of. The options available to the home guitar builder for an easy, quick, relatively safe high gloss finish, and at the same time I've also been incredibly narrow-minded and always discounted resins as a possibility for that finish. As resins have become popularized and more options are available and all of that, and this isn't a sponsored video by any means, I'm coming back round to the idea that actually on the market now there probably are finishes that are easy and quick and give us the look that we want. And yes, as you can see, I came within a minute or two of gluing this headstock to the workbench. Yeah, I've been doing this for a long time, and I do absolutely think that in some cases I've become fairly narrow-minded. So, well, let's see. First of all, let's clear this off. But if you have any ideas of finishes or techniques that you think I should look into, please, please let me know. This does afford me safer access to the truss rod, which, to calm your beating hearts, is fully functional, just because it doesn't look like a traditional Telecaster truss rod access. Does that mean that it's inherently wrong? Narrow-minded or not, I don't care. I don't like it. I'm going to do something a little bit more traditional. And don't worry, it's not going to be a bullet truss rod thing. All right then, so I've removed the dust and leveled off the neck a little bit, and I'm now going to replace that finish and glue this anchor in. Also a metal knife or a metal spatula. This is a knife, but a metal spatula is better for the resin. Resin seems to stick to silicone in a way that just makes it more difficult to clean up, which is the goal. I'm dripping resin and aluminium all over the shop. That's why I have a sacrificial rug. While that sets, Japanese saw rasp. There is nothing this tool can't do. I kind of got a little bit carried away. The fact that I've got a workshop in my home and ADHD, and I tend to hyperfocus, is a bit of a problem. Anyhow, I am now very happy with how these things are turning out. In this light, I'm not sure if you can see the shine and the shimmer, etc. I have put the truss rod back to what it should be. I'm very happy with that. And yet, I was partway through this process and thought, oh gosh, there's something else that I've wanted to do forever. Essentially Japanese lacquerware, where they take mother of pearl shell brass, sort of cloisonné kind of thing, and they stick the pieces on and then paint lacquer over it and build the lacquer up to the same level as the inlay. I 100% could have put a logo or an inlay design in here and then built the resin up to the same level as that. Oh well. There's always the next project. This is a little micro motor dental tool. I'm fairly sure I've mentioned it because I'm in love with it. I picked it up very, very inexpensively on Amazon, and I love the damn thing. With the finer lines, I'm going in with little curved files. Now I'm not sure if we're going to end up filling the logo with, well, not filling, but painting the inside, potentially. Depends on what it looks like in a second. But much like the inlays, I love the idea of having facets and curves, and the way the light plays with this guitar is important to me. Yeah, this might actually just be too subtle. And that's just not Ben Crowe, is it? What would you do? Let me know in the comments. I like the 3D-ness. I'm currently thinking a sort of lightly transparent blue wash just inside the cavity. You still get the shadows, you still get the sheen, you still get the silver coming through from behind. But I'm going to leave this video from now, or from here. Thank you for watching. Click like, subscribe, stay cool, build stuff. See you soon. Bye.